All right. So I will do the share screen here and hopefully bring up some images. 2 secs. Let's just see if this is working. Okay. Can everybody see that? That's all working, nodding. Yep. Okay, so has just put a show of hands. Has anyone actually had a look at the website and seen what this is about? Couple? Yeah. So there was a double page spread in RDU. I think it was the last issue, and there's been a little bit around in the Rotary media coming out of RI and Parramatta about this. Our biggest challenge, of course, with this event is COVID, as you'd expect. But I'll just give you a brief rundown of what it's all about. On the surface, it is a weekend of activity where what we're trying to do is get as many as people as possible to walk a number of walks around the Canberra area. We have 2 7-kilometre walks, 2 12-kilometre walks, a 21, a 24 and a 42. Now we've created a medal, and to get the medal, people must do 1 walk on Saturday and 1 walk on Sunday. Now, from a community perspective at the moment, this by the way is on in the last weekend in March, and we've scheduled it for the last weekend in March for next year and the year after as well. When COVID is gone and we can do international travel, the intention is to do a lot of promotion overseas and try and get lots of people coming to this event. Now, behind the scenes, this is from a Rotary perspective, it's a very intricate strategy to do with engaging with the community and specifically engaging with our youth. So you could say a theme for this would be connect with the community, but that's actually our club's theme. But nonetheless, that's really what we're trying to do. I'll just flick through here, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. So when I put, so this is basically a creation out of my head in response to the Rotary Club of Sydney and Melbourne, or the R100 committee, asking clubs around Australia and New Zealand to try and think of a centenary project. And I thought, well, what's a way that we can create a centenary project that's not just for this year, but it has some ongoing benefit to Rotary and the community. So not wanting to make this a club project, I went and tapped people on the shoulder in different clubs that I knew had different skills. And so our core committee setting this up includes people from 5 different Rotary clubs. And we've also roped in a few others, and you can see a bunch of them there on one of our testing walks where we're trying to work out where the routes are going to go. We had a little opening ceremony. This was the 12th of December, where we did a little 8K walk around the place, and we had a few officials there. Gonged the peace bell. For those who don't know anything about the peace bell, there are 2 peace bells in Australia, and I think there are 27 around the world. There's a whole story behind the whole peace bell movement and what it's all about. These things are all made in Japan, following a particular procedure. They're made out of old coins. The original idea was that they were going to make them out of bullet shells, but that turned out to be a little bit too difficult. So they ended up making them out of old coins. But this is the one in Canberra, and it's one of the world peace bells. Now, the website has an awful lot of information on it, and we're trying to attract people to create, if you like, a moving festival. So we want people representing different countries in groups, dressed in something that indicates what country they're representing. So they, for example, we've got a Finnish team that's entered, obviously representing Finland, and they'll be doing Nordic walking, and they'll have Viking horns on their heads. We've got a bunch of Samoans that'll be probably in grass skirts, I imagine. And all up at the moment, we have about 35 countries represented, and they cover all continents. Primarily, most people are Aussies because that's the default setting. But when people register, they are required to select a country that they're going to represent. Now, as I said, the project is really aimed at promoting Rotary to people who aren't as old as many people in Rotary. And the focus is really on our youth programs. And so this website at the moment, I'll just bring up the stats here. You can see there, this is January's stats, or 23rd of January to 23rd of Feb, I think it is. So what we're looking at there is roughly 1,400 and something visitors to the website for that month period. And of those 1,400 people, the average time spent on the site is almost 3 minutes. So that means that they're reading things on the website, which is exactly what we want. But the really interesting thing here is the age group split. And you'll see they're relatively even. Surprisingly, there's quite a few 18 to 24s, which I didn't really expect. But the strategy would appear to be working, as we have the highest number of people visiting this website is 25 to 34-year-old age group. So for a Rotary website, that's not too bad. We're pretty pleased with that. Moving along, we have been doing volunteer briefings and volunteer walks starting last weekend. We put the word out to all the clubs around the Canberra area, or in our district actually, but primarily around the Canberra area, to try and get as many clubs involved in volunteering as possible, with the idea that around the courses we'll have different Rotary clubs with a little marquee, and they'll be doing food or drink or whatever their particular activity is. My own club's going to have a fire engine connected up to a hydrant, so the kids can have a go at holding the fire hose while it's squirting. But there are a few different activities that different clubs are doing. And we really wanted to show, as people are walking around, that there's an awful lot that Rotary does, and there's a lot of Rotary clubs. Now, every one of these walks starts at the Peace Bell. Every one of the walks finishes at a place called Albert Hall, which is an old hall next to the Hyatt Hotel in the centre of Canberra. And inside Albert Hall, that's where they'll pick up their certificates or medals for completing the course. And this is a challenge. It's not a race. So there's no single, start and a gun goes off and everyone heads off down the track. We've socially distanced the whole thing so we could get around COVID stuff. So on the Saturday, the 27th, it actually, the marathon starts at 7 o'clock, or between 7 and 8, and then the starting blocks go right through till 12 o'clock, just for simply 4 walks. The 7K being the one that we thought would have the most people, so we gave them an hour and a half to start, which means people can turn up pretty much at any time within that space. They sign on, they get their little book stamped, and away they go. And there's no real time limit, although if people aren't back by dark, we'll pack up and leave. So this was last weekend. In fact, that's Sunday. All those folks are Rotarians with different clubs. We were doing trial walks, that this is for the volunteers, of the 2 7K routes and the 2 12K routes. So we did a 1 7 and 1 12 on Saturday, the other 7 and the other 12 on Sunday. And as those you people may have heard, Canberra is called the bush capital. That little track they're walking on is probably only about 1 kilometre from the Parliamentary Triangle, so it's not far away at all, but it's a little piece of virgin bushland. So it's quite an interesting series of routes we've got that show off the city reasonably well. Now, we've connected this walk up with a whole bunch of other walks around the world. So there's a series of walks. An organisation called the IML, which translated to English stands for International Marching League, is the organisation that we're linked in with. And that means that there's a whole nother series of similar sorts of events all around the world. And people who wish to do so can get a passport, and they have a different medal system that's got bars on it like military medals, and you get a bar for each country you walk in. So it's encouraging people to see the world and really to become international, I suppose, if they aren't already. And our focus is on kids. So when they go into the Albert Hall to pick up the medals, there'll be displays all around the walls there, and hopefully people, if we're allowed to have people in there to talk to. And they'll be for things like National Youth Science Forum and Model United Nations and RILA and RIPEN and all those youth programs that we all know about. These have just gone up on the main road. Northbourne Avenue is the main road coming in from Sydney, or from Melbourne for that matter, because you come up past us and down the Barton Highway and you hook in to Northbourne Avenue, takes you into the city. We've got 20 banners going down the main street as you come into Canberra to give a bit of a sense of an event. We've also got a whole bunch of guys that are going to be doing the haka and all that sort of stuff, representing our New Zealand friends who, of course, can't get here. The whole weekend kicks off at 4:30 at the Peace Bell on Friday, the 26th of March, where we will have the Governor General representing Australia, of course, Ian Risley representing Rotary, and there'll be someone from the New Zealand High Commission. There'll be these chaps doing a haka. We'll have an Aboriginal elder doing the welcome to country and a few other little things. So hopefully it'll be a nice media event and a good PR way to start the walks. Following that, we'll go across the lake. Those that are attending the Peace Dinner will go across the lake to the National Museum. And at the National Museum, we have a really nice lineup of activities. Again, all of this is fundraising for Rotary Give Every Child a Future. For those who don't know what Give Every Child a Future project is, in August, I think it was 2019, a chap flew from Auckland to Samoa and he had the measles. As it turns out, no one over there is vaccinated against this, as we all are here as children. And as a result, within the next 4 months, a lot of people died. About 87 of them were under the age of 5, and they died of the measles. So the Rotary Club of Auckland got in touch with the Rotary Club of Sydney and said, how about we do something about this and make it a centenary project? So they then got in touch with UNICEF. UNICEF said, identified these 9 Pacific Island nations, which includes Samoa and Tonga and Cook Islands and a bunch of others. All this information's on the website, by the way. And these 9 Pacific Island nations fall into a funding gap. So they're not rich enough like Fiji, for example, to look after their own medical needs adequately. And they aren't poor enough to get enormous amounts of aid that comes in from various international organizations. So they just fit within a funding gap. And so with these 9 Pacific Island nations identified, the 2 clubs, and Melbourne and Wellington got involved as well, but primarily this is being driven out of Sydney and Auckland. They came up with this Give Every Child a Future project to vaccinate 100,000 kids over 3 years against 5 diseases. That includes cervical cancer for girls, teenage girls. This project will take 3 years, and they need roughly $45 US per child to vaccinate for all 5 things. At the moment, they are sitting at around about 2.5 million, which has almost all come in from global grants, but we still need another couple of million to complete the project. So they are starting on this, and obviously going over 3 years, we can continue to raise money for it. So for the dinner, we have entertainment from a few different sources, Pacific Island groups. All of those 9 countries will be represented, some by high commissioners, others by, they don't have commissioners here, so we'll have residents, reasonably well-known residents in the community representing each of those 9 countries. Rotary Club of Sydney's booked a table. I would expect Rotary Club of Melbourne too. Rotary Club of Canberra's booked a table as the oldest club in Canberra. I think it's 93 years old now. We commissioned a local Indigenous artist to create a special painting for the project. And the brief that I gave her was we wanted something that represents Canberra. The word Canberra, for those who don't know or aren't aware, is it means meeting place, and it used to be a place where various Aboriginal tribes would come together. So the word Canberra means meeting place. So I wanted something that was an iconic Indigenous artwork that talked about the history of Canberra, but it also had some imagery that was to do with walk. So this little section here, I've got a whole heap of photographs of this as it's being made. It should be finished this week. I hope to pick it up on Friday. The bit that you can see with the little fish going through the middle of that blue thing is the Lake Burley Griffin, right through the middle of Canberra. The bit on the right-hand side of the screen, which looks like a sort of delta system, is what's known as the wetlands, and it is a wetland sort of area with native birds and fish and ducks and lizards and bits and pieces. And what she's done there is try and indicate where the river that was dammed up originally, where it flowed. And this is a further progression of the painting from last week. And the brown sort of circular things with the dots around them that you can see there, they are all where some of our checkpoints are going to be on. Our major checkpoints are on the peace walks. And you can see she's got little kangaroos, and there's a couple of kangaroos for those who are good at Where's Wally. There's a couple there. And we've got some fish and black swans, and there's some other little bits and pieces being added to it. That is as it stood on Sunday. That was the latest update she sent me. And, you know, I don't know how much of a judge I am, but I think it's looking pretty good. So this painting is about a bit short of 2 meters wide and a little bit over 1 meter high. So it's quite a large piece. We have 4 Indigenous artworks that we'll be auctioning for fundraising, and there'll be some, you know, dancing and all that sort of thing, and hopefully people will throw some money at some people, and we'll end up making a fair bit for the project out of it. So so just wrapping up before I take questions, the dinner, if anyone is interested in coming down, it should be fun. We will have yeah, as I said, good entertainment, a lot of laughs, some good food, etc. And then the walks kick off at 7 a.m. on Saturday with the marathon. And then, of course, they'll kick off again on the Sunday with the 24K and then the shorter events. The idea of all of this, of course, is that we're trying to promote Rotary as an organisation. We're trying to be visible without selling any sausages. That's a rule that I put in right from the beginning, is if there's any sausages that are cooked, it's not going to be us that do it, because I firmly believe that people believe what they see, not necessarily what you do. And if the public sees people cooking sausages outside Bunnings and that's all they see Rotary do, that's all they think Rotary does. At least this way we can have an opportunity to display our youth programs, and we can do that with emails with participants and information on the website and so on as well. And as I said, it is going to be an annual event. So as we go on and COVID eases, hopefully it will get bigger and better. So that's probably about it from me for the moment. If maybe it's question time. I'll just have to stop this thing. How do we stop this thing? No. That's how we do it.